any guests from outside of the community, as well as from other synagogues here in Teaneck. I don't want to give a long introduction for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't want to take that much time from Rav Lichtenstein's shiur, and he's on a very busy schedule, and I want to make sure he has enough time with his family. Number two, it's very difficult to stand here and introduce someone who has meant so much to so many people, and also personally. This evening, Rav Lichtenstein is going to be honored by Yeshiva University for 50 years of contribution in Avodat HaKodesh, and I met Rav Lichtenstein 30 years ago. 30 of those 50 years have been transformative for me since I was 17 years old. And deciding where to go in Israel, and Rav Lichtenstein spent a Shabbat at YU, and a number of us, many of us who live in this area, Chaim Jachter, Howie Jachter, Eli Weber, and many others, we spent that Shabbos and we were transformed into Talmidim already, even before we had gone to the yeshiva. It's very special on two levels also, so I just want to say a quick word. This week's Parsha, we learn about the Eved Avraham. It doesn't even have a name. It doesn't have the name Eliezer. Chazal tells us Eliezer, but in the text it says Eved Avraham. And what's fascinating about Eved Avraham is, on the one hand, Avraham gives him a tzav, a tzivui, he gives him a command, but it's very short. It's a couple of psukim. But the rest of the Parsha is what the Eved Avraham does himself, and his impact on trying to bring Rivka home to make the shidduch for Yitzchak. And of course, there's something very powerful there, that Avraham on the one hand empowered the Eved Avraham. Avraham empowered his student, his Eved, servant. So Avraham, as Rabbi Lamb always spoke about, Rabbi Soloveitchik, Avraham was authoritative without being authoritarian. He, in effect, was able to give the Eved the wings to be able to do that. And that's Rav Lichtenstein's, one of his great things, besides everything else, Miktzat Shvacho B'fanav, to give his students the ability, on the one hand, to learn at his feet, and at the same time to take their own paths and wherever that they'll take them, with that great teaching and that great inspiration that he's given us. And Rav Lichtenstein, for all of us, is kind of, any time that we've heard him, Rav Lichtenstein, we have a kind of dual reaction. On the one hand, there's a certain chalishas hadas, as we say. There's a certain sense of being overwhelmed. When you read an article of Rav Lichtenstein, you say, wow, I wish I could write like that. I wish I could express an idea with that kind of nuance. When you hear a shiur, I still remember the shiurim on Chulin, on Rov and Chazaka, and to be able to analyze a topic like that, and the 4 or 5 hour Chazar shiurim, it kind of stands as an apex of excellence, a kind of aspirational. So on the one hand, there's chalishus hadas, there's a sense of being overwhelmed. On the other hand, there's a sense of aspiration, of excellence, that's what we should aspire to in everything, in Torah, in Midot, in the way that we approach life with complexity. So for us here at Netivot Shalom, it's very, very special. I really thank Rav Lichtenstein for agreeing to come and give us a shiur here this morning on the topic of minhag. Chavod Rav. Everyone should please turn off their cell phone.
Thank you, House God. It's a very generous introduction, and I hope that this part discussed this morning manifests some of the elements that were clearly discussed. Part of the human difficulties, the topic that we do with, there's an additional factor. This is the time frame, which should, with that admit and allow a total survey, even at the a basic level of the overall topic of Minhag. It's a topic which has many manifestations, takes many forms, and in addition to everything else, has all kinds of analogs with similar issues, the role of Minhag in a lot of other traditions, or the general legal traditions, or whether spiritual traditions. Moreover, it's an area which has attracted, in recent times, systematically and to some extent comprehensively, the attention of people in different areas of life. The elements which can join in the area of the word of Minhag are relevant to one plane, to Bala Halacha. I say Bala Halacha, that's up based down to two. Those who study, develop the raw material of Halacha, the word of Halacha, the basic texts, sugyas, Rishonim, etc. Also Bala Halacha to the Peskin. Minhag inter alia is a factor in deciding between conflicting opinions, and that is a ballgame in all itself. But it attracts not only Bali Halacha. Historians, for obvious reasons, have interest in Minhag as well. Partly because many of the Minhagim, to a far greater extent that you have in other areas for Halacha, the origin for us, how do we get to them, is through textual Rishonim. So the historian needs to consult compendia of Shelas Tshuvas, Sifrei Psad, some Sfarim within which the two elements, as first and Yeruah, come together. At the same token, into sociologists, for whom it may not be a question of the overall history of the phenomenon, but give us some picture of scope of area of Halacha, its roots, and then to extrapolate from that to try to understand the basic components, the source of the role of Halacha, the multiple role of Minhag, the multiple role of Minhag in our lives. And then there's another factor which some will be a little taken aback by, but I think everyone who's in the areas I mentioned previously knows that is the reality. The area of Minhag is of interest to people who have an axe to grind as well. As a matter of fact, there are two axes to grind, because Minhag is what too strong a term, what does it say, is an instrument. It's a little more modern. Instrument which, in debates which have in certain respects ideological roots, ideological content, ideological conclusions, in that debate, and the word of Halacha is one which Machlekes is very, in the positive sense of the term, it's quite widespread. In that debate, Minhag can serve one of two constituencies. On the one hand, it can be used by people who want to, at some level, to undermine the authority and position of Halacha. From their point of view, there's a certain theoretical aspect in the basic corpus of halacha, and they have an interest in weakening that hold, and one or two ways, if you will, one or two reasons. The overwhelming power, the force of halacha, it's psak, sapidin, you should do this, you should do that. That's something which, without getting into details, and even if they're not worried about a particular halacha, which they don't like, but they want to weaken somehow that corpus 10 feet tall, and which binds and limits and demands persistently across the broad front. So from that point of view, anything which will, by definition, weaken the whole of halacha is useful. Weakening may take, of course, various forms. It could be a direct contravention, or if you have an halacha, as opposed to what you find the word of minhag, what's out there, what's in here. Or it may be not a direct contravention, but as I said, a weakening of the emotional hold and the power which the word of halacha attains in our thought and our behavior. And anything which will somehow dilute that force is of interest. And therefore, one of the things that you find in some of the works written by people of what today we regard as left-wing tendencies, anything which is a reservoir of arguments against, or trying to point out to you, to prove to you that Allah, which you think is univocal, which you think is so fundamentally sound and based, it's not quite the way it is. Here I find you a place like this, place like this. Put it a little differently, as opposed to the absolutist tinge which many people find in the word of halacha, there's a relativistic component whenever you have another player in the field. And the word of minhag is a very useful player for that reason. But the word of minhag has a different and, you might say, diametrically opposed role within the discourse and the practice